Hi, welcome to Yoga Selection. My name is Rod. Today we're working with shoulders, a general shoulder class, but also a class that will be more specifically focusing on the rotator cuff. Make sure that you've got a yoga chair, a blanket and 2 blocks, and we'll begin using the chair. So we'll have the back of the chair facing us. The chair will be towards the far end of the mat. We'll just keep 2 of the feet on the yoga mat so that the chair isn't inclined to slide. And then we'll come to kneeling. We've got the big toes together, the knees apart. Now the distance with the body away from the chair, we just need to make sure now that we can reach the top of the chair and grab firmly onto the top of the chair. So rather than, as we sometimes do, pressing the hands down flat onto the top, I'm actually gripping the chair firmly with the fingers and the thumbs. And we just need to make sure that the hips are able to anchor right back and down onto the heels. So maybe just, if you just get a visual of it, if this is occurring, if your hips are lifting, the chair is too far away. So we need to move the chair in. And if you're not making a straight line from your wrists to your hips, if this is occurring, if the shoulders are lifting up, then the chair is too close. So just a few moments just to refine that chair position. And our objective in using the chair is to get a sense of stretching, or probably better word, traction through the shoulder region. And it should feel similar in a sense to when you are hanging off a bar. So we want that sense of the shoulders opening, and in order to intensify or to target further that stretching sensation through the shoulder region, first of all we need to make sure that our hips are anchored. So imagine that someone is behind you and holding your hips back and down towards the feet. And in addition to that, the chair is as far away as possible from you. And as I focused on that, I'm able to slide the chair that little bit further out to get still further more opening through the shoulder region. And then firm grip with the hands, but let's see if we can extract that a little bit more by descending the hips further. We'll focus first of all on the thigh bones. So your thigh bones descend. It's almost a relaxing adjustment there. We need to release the quadriceps, and as we do that, the thigh bones can descend further down towards the floor. Feel the change in the shoulder sensation as you move the back of the pelvis away from the spine. So we're just gradually going deeper. Maintain that firm grip with your hands, but your sitting bones at the base of the pelvis, draw them further back and further down towards the toes, and we get that little bit more of an intense opening through the shoulders. So now let's add a slight twisting action to this basic shape. I'm just going to move the chair in just a little bit closer, just to give us some room to work with. And rather than having both hands now onto the top of the chair, we'll just leave the left hand there, but we'll move it across a little so that it's into the center of the frame. The right hand, then it comes to the floor beside the right knee. We're going to add a twisting movement shortly, but just initially let's just push the chair back out so that we can maximize the length there between the left hand and the left hip socket. We want to get, again, that nice sense of opening and traction through the shoulder region. To get that initially, we can grip firmly with the hand and firmly anchor the hips, but we just need to loosen and open the shoulder a little just to allow it to extend. Once you've felt that occur, and it can just sometimes take a few moments, once you've felt the shoulder open, then we can work to more actively straighten the left elbow. And that straightness in the left elbow, it will mean that the elbow won't sink, it won't drop, as we now add a turning action to the spine. So we'll turn the chest towards the right side, the left side of the chest moves towards the floor, the right side of the chest up and away from the floor, but without the left elbow dropping. Make sure that your left side ribs have remained straight. Don't allow them to bulge or to crescent across to the left side. Contain them in towards the spine. It helps to lengthen the spine and open the shoulder further. If there's space to push the chair just that little bit further out, then do so, keeping the hips anchored, keeping the left hand firm, keeping the left elbow straight. All right, and then let's try to the other side. We'll bring the right hand up onto the top of the chair, left hand to the floor beside the left knee. Again, the firm grip with the right hand, firm anchor with the hip sockets back and down, but just let go of the right shoulder and just allow it to lengthen and have some space. Keeping that space in the right shoulder, then firm the right elbow. Don't confuse that though with the right shoulder socket getting jammed inwards towards the center of the body. It needs to have some space there away from the center line. The right side ribs, straighten them in without dropping the right elbow. Start to turn the chest now. The right chest towards the floor. The left shoulder, it lifts up. And the face, it just follows the direction of the chest so that the eyes start to look more towards the left side. Without dropping the left elbow, without dropping the right elbow, and without narrowing the right armpit. Keep the outer armpit broad away from the inner armpit. Okay, and then release and come up. We'll put the chair just for the moment off to the side. Take your blocks. We'll work with two versions of Ardha Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog pose. We'll be using blocks for the hands. We're going to be wedging the blocks on a 45-degree angle against the wall. Just notice for me, I'm placing the blocks far enough away from one another, so leaving a big enough gap in the middle there so that I can fit each hand entirely on the block, but with the wrists shoulder width. So you just want to make sure that your arms are making parallel lines here. So often it's common here to put the blocks right on the yoga mat. That tends to push the wrists in too close. Just making sure that the arms are parallel. Broader shoulders, you've got the blocks overlapping the outer edges of the mat. Make sure that now when you place your hands, that all of the fingers stay on the blocks. Spread the fingers wide apart. Align the heels of the hands level to the inner edges of the blocks. And then we'll press back to downward facing dog pose. Just feel the natural tendency here is for the weight to sink towards the heels of the hand. So you're focusing on the hand sensation here. And rather than allowing your weight to collapse towards the heels of the hands, press the bases of the fingers down, the fingers themselves down. Feel how we go from a sensation of dropping the shoulders to then lifting up and through the shoulder region. And if you really focus on that sensation of the shoulders lifting, notice how it is really targeted towards the inner shoulder area. I'll show it in a moment before we do the next variation, but it's that last bit of the inner arm, so thumb side of the arm, before the shoulder region. And it lifts up. When it lifts up, the side ribs lift up, the whole body lifts up, the hip sockets press back, and we're pressing our hands down, but generating lift up through the shoulder region. Okay, and then release down, knees to the floor, and hips back to heels, arms extend forwards, that area there. Maybe just if you quickly look to the screen, so I'll describe it as inner shoulder. Really, it's more the arm. It's this area here where the biceps area joins into the shoulder region. The outer collarbone, it's all the way out here where the top of the shoulder is. We'll be excuse me, focusing on that outer collarbone area in this next variation, where we bring the blocks closer together so that now we can have the fingers turned in. So placing the hands with the fingers turned inwards towards the center. Now if you go too wide with the hands, it's actually going to intensify the wrist action. So if anything, come a slightly narrower version than your shoulder width. Again, just make sure that you've got all of the fingers on the blocks. For me, as I look there down at my hands, the blocks are almost touching. I've left maybe 2 centimeters, 3/4 of an inch there, space between the two blocks. And From there we press back. And the most common initial sensation here is one of the shoulders lifting and difficulty in getting the shoulders to move in and down into alignment with the wrists and the pelvis. Something that can help with that is that action of, rather than just letting the weight sink to the heels of the hands, redirecting weight to the fingers. Feel how it brings the forearms closer together, the outer forearm bones on the little finger side of each hand, of each arm, draw closer together. The index finger bases press down into the blocks. And we just looked at those two areas, that inner shoulder area, lift it up until you feel the outer collarbones lifting in the direction of the pelvis. Continue that lift through the hip sockets, thighs press back, shins press back. Okay, and then release down. And let's take our chair back and we'll bring the chair as we had it earlier. We'll have the front of the chair facing us now. The two of the feet of the chair on the yoga mat. Important for this one because we will be leaning our body weight on the chair. Sometimes if you're on a slippery floor surface, that can just mean that the chair slides away from you. If you are, as many people will be, using a yoga chair that doesn't have the built-in cushioning that I've got on this chair, it may be necessary to put a support there because this part of the elbow can be quite sensitive. Blanket is a last resort because it tends to be a little bit slippery. Better still, and if you've got one, use it, an extra yoga mat, just folded over the chair just to give you a bit of cushioning but also a good amount of grip. Leave enough room, particularly for the taller ones, for your legs. If the chair is too close to the wall, you won't be able to walk the knees back into correct alignment. If you've got a hard floor surface, you might want some padding for your knees. You can use a blanket for that. Elbows on the edge of the chair. So bring the elbows so they're secure on the chair but as near as possible to the edge. Make sure that the elbows are at least shoulder width, even a little bit narrower than shoulder width. And then head can come through the upper arms. If you need to, you rest your forehead onto the seat of the chair, but preferably letting your head hang down into the space there between the arms. We will get to the point where we more or less just release and relax the shoulders, but just initially, before we let go, just consciously press your elbows down into the seat of the chair. And as you do that, not just pressing down, but a little bit squeezing the elbows towards the center of the chair. It's an action, someone won't actually see the elbows slide closer together, but for you, from the inside, it feels as if you're stretching the seat of the chair towards the center of the chair. And that just prevents the elbows from splaying. So we now want to keep that adjustment on the elbows without them splaying, but just let go and release all of that pushing with the elbows so that we can just let the shoulder sockets release and relax. Notice when they do relax, they descend. Right one, left one. They also broaden. So they sit outwards away from the center of the body. They also move back a little and away from the ears. So that if someone was looking at you from above, there would be a nice amount of space there in between the neck and the inner shoulder area. Let's start to bring the thumbs now down towards the base of the neck. Again, without the elbows splaying, and just allowing the shoulders to release and relax. All right, let's come up now, and similar pose will be, I'll just show from the front, will be folding the arms. So that's our natural way of folding the arms. This particular way is a bit of a looser arm fold than this. It's just with the hands cupping the elbows. Just do it, doesn't matter which forearm's on top, but take note of it. For me, I've got my right forearm sitting on top of my left forearm, so we'll start with that. The fingers are cupping the elbow points. We place the elbows and the forearms onto the seat of the chair. Again, if you need to, you just let your forehead rest on the seat there, but preferably letting the head hang down into the space between the upper arms. Position of the knees is important, more or less directly under your hips. If you've got tighter shoulders, you might want to have the knees in a little closer than that. Don't go any further back than directly under the hips, but the more the knees are directly underneath the hips, the more weight you'll be able to lean into the elbows, and the more of an opening that will come to the shoulders. Again, the way the shoulders relax in the pose has a very clear direction. The shoulders spreading outwards and moving back away from the ears. And almost it gets that sense of that shoulder area, rather than it definitely not being a V shape, if seen from above, that the negative space there between the neck and the shoulders. Not just a U shape, which is heading in the right direction, but see if you can get that feeling of more of a rectangular maximum space there between the neck and the shoulder sockets and the biceps. Okay, and then we'll come up, and then to get the opposite fold of the arms, for me it's now the left forearm on top of the right forearm, still lightly cupping the elbows with the fingers, placing the forearms and elbows up onto the seat of the chair and returning back to that position. We keep the fingers slightly gripping the elbows so that they don't splay out, and that allows the shoulders to fully release, fully relax. They broaden outwards, backwards, away from the ears. And again, that maximum space there between the neck, the shoulders, and the inner upper arms. Okay, let's release and let's come to the Garudasana arm action. We'll look at the classical version of the pose. So we're just focusing on the arms here. We'll look at the classical position, and then we'll make two variations, one of which will really help the opening come more to the rotator cuff region. So starting with the arms out to the side, just as you're looking at the screen now, I will be mirroring. So here's the right hand and here's the left hand. So we cross our arms over so that the right elbow sits on top of the left elbow. We bend the elbows with the little fingers facing forwards. Let's first of all assess and make sure that we can get the clasp in the classical position. To do it, the left hand comes in closer to the face, the right hand comes around the front of the left hand, and then with the left hand we're gripping the base of the right thumb. The fingers, they'll come right up into the center of the palm. I can even feel the knuckles there of my right fingers where they join the palm. So here's the classical position, keeping the right elbow level to the shoulders. And we'll come back and return to this and look at it in more detail. But firstly, just to get into that right deltoid area, let's keep the left arm as it is, but straighten the right arm to this position. I'll just give you a moment just to glance at the screen if you need to. So the reason that we've straightened the arm is so that we can now, with our hooked arm, with the left arm, just apply some pressure on that arm and drawing it back towards the body so that the upper arm gets in closer to the chest. Now we need to be searching out a stretch into the right deltoid. I'm just pointing to it now if you glance to the screen. This muscle, you might already be getting it a little bit by just pulling the arm back, but for people that aren't particularly tight in that area, it might not be possible at this stage to get a stretching sensation. But go that bit further by drawing the right shoulder down as the arm is pulled in towards the chest, and counter that action a little bit further by moving the right outer shoulder back as you draw the arm in towards the chest. Keep your chest lifting, back ribs moving in. All right, and then we'll come back to the more classical position. So we're clasping the right hand with the left fingers, And there's a nice variation for the rotator cuff. Let's first of all make sure that the elbows are in the correct position. So right elbow level to the shoulders. Notice how it's the job of the left elbow to maintain that elbow position. The left elbow, it lifts the right elbow up, and without letting the right elbow drop, let's now angle the arms over towards the 45-degree position towards the right side. So you're actually using your left hand to help that right forearm and hand to come towards that 45-degree position, but without letting the right elbow drop and without letting the right shoulder lift up. Okay, and then we'll come back to the classical position, make a straight connected line from the right hand into the right forearm. To do that, we need to resist with the fingers, but moving the right wrist bones towards the palm side of the arm. The right little finger, turn it directly away from the face. Okay, release, and arms out to the side. We'll do the opposite arm, left elbow on top of the right elbow. Now I didn't mention it on that first side, but I was just gauging whether, or getting you to gauge whether or not you can come into this position with the hands. Not everyone can do it, and don't panic if you can't. And this is also a good way of building towards that. Just need to make sure that the little fingers are facing forwards. If the thumbs are facing forwards, you've gone in the wrong direction. So both of the little fingers facing forwards. If you're unable to get the hands together, that variation where we go over to the side, you might need to leave that one out and just consolidate the classical position, which is this or this. Before we get there though, let's bring the left arm straight now. And with the hooked right arm, just draw the arm closer into the chest. Draw the left shoulder down, the left outer shoulder, resist it back towards the wall behind you as you pull the arm in towards the chest. It's one of those poses for those of you that aren't particularly tight in that muscular area around where the deltoid is, then it might not be such a strong stretching sensation. It's still good to use the shoulder and the arm in that range of movement. Those of you that might have a bursitis in that deltoid area, it can be quite an intense pose, so just go easy if that is the case. And we'll come back to the classical position. If you're like this, you're just remaining that way. Those of you that can clasp, we're using the right hand to angle the left forearm 45 degrees out to the side, but without letting the elbows drop. So keeping that left elbow at shoulder height, resisting the left shoulder down and away from the ear. Okay, and then let's come back to the vertical position. The left wrist bones moving, containing towards the palm side of the arm. The left little finger turning directly away from the face. We haven't mentioned it yet, but probably the most common instruction needed here is that one of keeping the left shoulder down. It tends to lift up, so left shoulder down, but without leaning the arms towards the left side. Okay, release. So Garudasana, let's also look at the Gomukhasana arm action. We'll look at some variations of it that really isolate the rotator cuff, and we'll be looking more at the action of the bottom arm. We won't be so concerned with what the top arm is doing. So we can use the chair. Now you can just stay facing as you are, just so you can see better. I'll turn my chair. So right arm, left arm. We're sitting back in the chair. Ideally your hips are able to come a little bit through the frame of the chair, and it will work better if that is the case. Don't panic if that's not possible. The gap there between the seat of the chair and the back of the pelvis is about 2 inches, 5 centimeters. And now I'll just bring the right hand behind the back and clasping the frame of the chair. Get a good grip with the thumb as well. And if you're not getting much of a stretch in the rotator cuff, you'll know you're getting a stretch if your right shoulder is pushing forwards and the right shoulder blade is winging out, coming away from the back ribs. Now it's often that action, the shoulder blade becoming loose, that prevents us from being able to get a corrective stretch into the rotator cuff. So the best thing we can do is to try to bring some stability and firmness to that right shoulder blade. The way we do that, pressing the right forearm against the back ribs, choose the bit nearest the elbow, but we're pressing the elbow and forearm into the back of the body in order to generate leverage to roll the right shoulder back and move the shoulder blade in. Now, in the previous pose, we looked at a variation where we brought the forearm 45 degrees away from its classical position, and it really helped to work into the rotator cuff. We can do a similar thing here. The chair's there, which means that we can't actually move the arm. So what we'll have to do is move our body, and all we do there is just move 45 degrees with the legs and the chest so that we're facing more towards the right side, but without letting the elbow wing away from the body. Still the forearm, the elbow pressing into the back of the body. It's more the right side here, and the right shoulder roll back, the right shoulder blade move in, and it's as if you're pulling the chair towards the right side. So firm grip with the right hand and pulling the chair in that direction towards the right side. Okay, let's release. We'll straighten ourselves back up. We'll work with the left side, bringing the left arm behind the back. Firm grip with the left hand, the thumb as well. Press the forearm, the elbow region against the back of the body, left shoulder roll back, and the left shoulder blade move in. So the general population, majority of people are right-handed, and for right-handed people, the pose is probably going to be a little easier on the left side, potentially a little more restricted. On the right side, it will be vice versa for left-handed. So for left-handed people, more than likely, this side will be the more challenging side. So left shoulder roll back, left shoulder blade move in, keep the chest lifting. And again, some of you may, if you're not particularly restricted in the rotator cuff, be struggling to get a stretch. It's something that you've got to be curious about. Go searching and follow those instructions, the pressing the forearm, rolling the shoulder back, moving the shoulder blade in, and searching out that stretch that can be a little bit elusive, particularly if there's a lot of mobility in that shoulder blade area. Try to keep the shoulder blade more firm. Then something that we can do just to amplify it a little on the rotator cuff, we just turn the body 45 degrees so that the thigh bones are now angled 45 degrees relative to the seat of the chair. And if we just let go and relax, the change in arm position is accommodated by the shoulder blade getting loose. So again, move the shoulder blade in, roll the shoulder back, and you might find in doing that it just intensifies a little that opening into the rotator cuff region. Okay, and then release. And maybe I'll show from this side, and then we can, if need be, I'll turn around just to make it a little bit easier. We're going to reach back through the frame of the chair and hold the seat of the chair with the fingers interlocking. This is a pretty simple pose. All we're looking for here is a really clear sense of the shoulders being pulled back and the arm bones being firmly pulled down, out and away from the shoulder sockets. You might be getting that already, but it is a little bit dependent on the length of your arms relative to the length of your spine. And so it may be necessary, particularly for the taller ones or people with longer arm ratio, just to come a little bit further forwards. You judge that yourself so that you can stay upright, but firm grip with the fingers as you press your feet down, as you press the backs of the thighs down, as you lift your chest forwards and upwards. There should be that sense of the arm bones being pulled back and down, away from the shoulders. Your shoulder blades are firmly moving in as the chest is lifting up. Okay, and then let's release there. And it will be good to stay on this angle. So we're just going to shuffle back a little bit further. Now, and of course, much easier if you are able to get your hips to fit through the frame of the chair. Not everyone can do that. Don't panic if you can't. It will just mean that you'll need to lean back a little bit in this pose to accommodate the next movement. Whereas ideally you would be staying more upright with your shoulders directly over your hips. So we're going to bring one arm through the frame of the chair, and then we hook the arm by bending the elbow. Got the frame of the chair in the elbow crease, and then we do with the opposite arm as well, hooking that through the frame of the chair. And just make sure that you've got this position initially, and we can use that as leverage to roll the shoulders back, to move the shoulder blades in. And key action here is that one of pressing the arms against the frame of the chair. So the elbows, they press into the frame of the chair, and whilst you do that, we'll go again for that 45-degree angle with the forearms and the fingers pointing out to the side, and that just helps to bring the rotator cuff a little more into the foreground of the pose. So keeping the arms in that position, 45 degrees turned out to the side, resist still more firmly the elbows into the frame of the chair, as if you're working to pull the chair forwards towards the wall there that you're facing. So the elbows press into the chair, lift your chest upwards and forwards. Shoulders, they stay rolling back. Okay, good. And then release. And let's then, obviously you can stay with your chair as it is. I'm just going to turn my chair so that you can more easily see. We'll sit now the other way through the chair. And will be, so common position for the left arm is this, and it works well generally, just to have the arm onto the top. But for this particular pose, better if we come lower down than the top of the chair and hold the chair this way. Don't confuse that with coming around the outside of the chair. It's just this, the forearm a little bit lower than the top of the chair. And then twisting action initially, we hold with the right hand behind the back of the pelvis, and similar traction there, rolling the shoulder back, moving the shoulder blade in. Now this is a twisting pose. It will involve a twist, but remember our focus today is very much on the shoulders, so the right shoulder. So we'll bring the right hand further around towards the left side of the chair, roll the right shoulder back, move the right shoulder blade in. Then we're going to reach further through and hold the side frame of the chair with the right hand. And just look what I'm doing with my left hand. I can just slide that hand a little bit higher up the frame. Ideally, the forearm will be parallel to the floor here. And the left hand, it just slots back into position. And we can roll the shoulder back and turning to look over the right shoulder. Just check that the right thumb is able to point upwards towards the ceiling here. If the thumb is pointing down, it means that you just need to rotate the hand and you're holding the incorrect way with the hand. So the thumb needs to be pointing up. Shoulder roll back, shoulder blade move in. And then again, just to isolate a little more the rotator cuff action, let's stay with the hand gripping the chair, but as much as possible, we're aiming now to keep the chest facing directly forwards. And that is not necessarily the end of the adjustment we're looking for. We now keep the chest in that position, the right chest forwards, but we draw the right elbow back and away from the body. The elbow back, the right shoulder back, but turn the chest in a forward direction. Again, think of keeping the right forearm at a 45-degree angle to the back of the body. Chest stays forwards, the elbow draws back. It's as if you're pulling the chair with the right hand back towards the direction that the elbow is pointing in. All right, let's try that on the other side. So we'll bring the left arm back, left shoulder, roll back, left shoulder blade move in. Again, we're constantly working in a number of these poses to move the arm bone back and down and away from the shoulder socket. Keeping good space there in the shoulder area. And then we'll bring the hand to hold the side frame of the chair. We want to avoid the left shoulder blade getting loose and winging. So left shoulder blade in, left shoulder roll back. It would be helpful here if someone actually came and placed their hand on your left shoulder blade and just gently helped it to move into the back ribs, and that would open up some of that capacity for the rotator cuff to stretch more. And then we'll turn the chest to face back to the front. A little awkward because we're holding the left hand with the frame of the chair, but it opens up this next adjustment of moving the elbow and the shoulder back. It's quite a firm action. Again, it's as if you're strongly pulling the frame of the chair in that direction that the left elbow is pointing. The left shoulder roll back. Okay, good. And then release. And we'll come out of the chair. We'll then position the chair close to the wall, leaving a little bit of a gap there for your fingers to fit in between the chair and the wall. You might want padding for the knees. You can always double your yoga mat back if you need to. Blanket also can work well here. Reverse back. Hold initially the side frame of the chair. Chest lifting, shoulders staying back and down. And now with groups of people, probably more common here to stay at this point with the hands onto the frame of the chair. But the really good thing about the yoga chair is it gives us a lot of incremental control to go further. If we are able to, comfortably, we can just walk the hands up. We can continue to walk the hands up. There is the option for holding the top of the chair. So you find the position there that maximizes the opening on the shoulders. More flexible people, sometimes it focuses in the elbow region. We want to avoid that. If that is the case, if you feel the focus of the pose more strongly in the elbows than in the shoulders, just slightly bend your elbows and see if you can bring the focus back to the front of the shoulders opening. Don't too aggressively roll the shoulders back here. We want to keep the space there at the back of the shoulder, not narrowing there, but don't confuse that with tipping the top of the shoulder forwards. Sternum bone lift up, keep your shins pressing down so your hips stay forwards. We're not looking for too much of a back bending action here. It's almost like a standing version, a kneeling version of Tadasana, but with the arms drawn back. And then let's release, and we'll move the chair out of the way, and we'll work with Vasisthasana variations. Feet are hip width apart. We bring the right hand to the wall, the right arm out at shoulder height. Now fingers need to spread. Sometimes the left hand needs to just come around and manually make that adjustment, because just flexing all of the muscles and tendons there in the right hand can sometimes be a little bit counterproductive. So once the fingers are spread, keep them that way. Press the index finger base of the right hand into the wall. Keep your right elbow lifting. Resist the right shoulder down and away from the ear. Left hand just onto the hip for the moment. So helpful pressing the hand into the wall. Also helpful if we use our legs, particularly the left foot. Press the left foot down and pressing the left foot into the floor. Feel how it gives you more of a firm push with the right hand into the wall. Go with that so that the right hand presses that a little bit more firmly with the elbow lifting, but keep the shoulder staying down and away from the neck. All right, and then just we'll loosen for a moment. We'll rotate the hand so that the fingers point back. And elbow lifting, shoulder down, and then both feet a half step forwards. And then right chest forwards and upwards, but keeping the right shoulder down. Then we're just gently going to turn the head to look over the left shoulder, but keep that firmness in the right hand, keep the height in the right elbow. Imagine someone gently pressing your right shoulder back down and into the body. Then look forwards again, walk the feet back to where they started, and we'll turn the fingers to point directly down. Make sure that the wrist is shoulder height, no higher than the shoulders. For most people, it will be a challenge to get the little finger side of the heel of the hand to make contact with the wall. Again, pressing the left foot down might just give you better leverage to close the gap there. Lifting the left elbow. Now we won't walk the feet forwards here, just keeping the arm directly out to the side. Turn the head to look over the left shoulder. Okay, and then we'll release, move then closer into the wall so that the right deltoid here is lightly in contact with the wall, as we then bring the arm back. 45 degrees is a good starting point. You can't see my left hand, I've just got it to the wall there in front of my left chest. Now without the right shoulder losing contact with the wall, walk the hand up the wall, so you can got the option there of coming up to the height of the shoulder. Don't go above the height of the shoulder. The right deltoid, it turns towards the wall. Again, don't confuse that with the top of the shoulder leaning forwards or tilting forwards. The shoulder stays back as the right chest lifts up and forwards. And let's bring the left hand onto the hip, leading with the chest, so activating the right chest, lifting it upwards and forwards. Let's turn the head to look a little towards the left side. Okay, and then release. Let's try on the left side, left hand out to the side, fingers spreading, press into the wall, elbow lift, with the right foot press down into the floor, and it gives us that improved leverage to press into the wall, lift the elbow. The action there with the hand as it presses into the wall, it's as if it's lifting the wall upwards away from the floor. Helps the elbow to lift, but it also gives you the leverage to keep the shoulder contained back down and into the body. So pressing the right foot down, pressing the left hand into the wall, but pressing it into the wall in such a way as if we're trying to lift the wall up and away from the floor. Left chest forwards. And then turn the fingers to point back. Both feet a half step forwards. Left chest turn forwards. Watch for the shoulder lifting, left shoulder down. Now lead with the chest, the left chest it lifts upwards, forwards, and then we're turning the head to look towards the right side, but without the shoulder following. Left shoulder, keep it back and down. And then walk the feet back to their start position, rotate the left hand so that the fingers point down. Common here for the wrist to sit higher than the shoulder. When I say common, with groups of people, commonly we would need to adjust that and correct that, bringing the hand down more to shoulder height. And then little finger side of the heel of the hand press into the wall. Again, the right foot pressing down gives us improved leverage into that part of the hand. The left elbow lifting, left chest lift up, and then just turning the head to look towards the right side. And looking back to the front, coming closer into the wall, keeping contact with that left deltoid area to the wall, bring the arm back. You choose the angle that it needs to be. So it might be 45 degrees if you're working with a tighter shoulder. It might be that you more consciously leave the arm lower down. The right hand just balancing you there, comes to the wall in front of you. With the left wrist, little finger side of the wrist press firm into the wall. Left deltoid turn towards the wall, but without tipping the shoulder forwards. The chest movement helps to correct for that. The left chest lift upwards and forwards. Then we'll just turn the head to look towards the right side. Again, drawing that arm bone back and away from the shoulder. Alright, and then release. We'll now come to lie on our right side. You need to make sure your feet are firmly in contact with the wall. The right arm is going to be flat to the floor, extending straight out into the center of the room. Maybe I'll just preempt before we get into this one, often one that we can come a little bit too suddenly into. If you are working with a sore shoulder, and the expectation is that there will be some people with shoulders that they're nursing a little, it might be better just to come into this pose with the arm angled more towards the front of the body, and then as the shoulder is comfortable and can adjust, you can incrementally walk the arm out more towards a straight right angle away from the floor. So coming down onto your side, feet to the wall. It's not just the right foot that needs contact with the wall, but also the left foot. And what I mean, so left hand just balances you. I'm exaggerating, but if you've got a sore shoulder, you can start with the arm more angled towards the front of the body, and then we can progressively walk the hand out. Take your time if you need to, so that the arm is at a right angle to the wall. Fingers spreading, the middle finger pointing directly outwards, not the index finger. And as you press down with the right hand, emphasize the thumb side of the wrist, pressing to the floor. Now your head can just rest on the upper arm, the ear aligned with the upper arm. Where the upper arm joins the shoulder region, press down into the floor. Press your feet into the floor so that the side ribs, a little bit you'll feel them slide on the skin of the body in the direction of the hand. And that just insists that the spine is lengthening, not being pushed back towards the pelvis. We'll add one further adjustment to the pose. So keeping the elbow in its current position without it sliding towards the front of the body, we'll then bend the elbow and place the right hand above the ear. With the left hand, you can just encourage the elbow to come that little bit further out so that the right outer armpit has a better chance of making a complete contact with the floor. So that right shoulder socket, move it downwards towards the floor. It's got a bit of a gripping action there with the right triceps, as if you're dragging the floor back towards the wall as the shoulder socket descends. Okay, and then we'll release, and let's come on to the left side. And feet to the wall, left arm. Take your time to get it into that position. If you've got a sore shoulder, it might not be that you can completely get into that right angle position away from the wall. Work to your capacity. Keep the right fingertips to the floor there in front of the chest, just to ensure balance. Another time we could come back to having the right hand onto the hip, and that will just add another element of balance to the pose. Fingers spreading, now it's that left wrist, the thumb side pressed down. As you do that, the contact of the elbow becomes lighter to the floor. The left upper arm bone descend down into the floor. Press the feet into the wall. If the right foot is not making a easy contact with the wall, sometimes just bring it a little higher up, more of a hip width distance with the right foot assists in terms of getting you a better push from the foot. And then we'll bend the elbow, placing the hand above the ear, and then the left shoulder socket descend towards the floor. Again, that little bit of a dragging action as the left triceps presses down, left elbow and triceps press down. It's a bit as if dragging the floor back towards the shoulders. Okay, good, and then release. And let's finish now with Savasana. So we'll take our blanket, half fold blanket for our head, and lying on your back. We'll still work with a shoulder emphasis in our Savasana. So let's start with the arms 45 degrees out to the side. Palms are facing up. Look for these 3 points on the arm. First one is the outer shoulders. So we sort of pin the shoulders back to the floor, and it's the outer shoulder that we want to descend. That's our leading movement. Without losing that, our next position, the inner elbow on the little finger side of the arm, press down there. And then the third point, the thumb side of the wrist, descend to the floor. Now, there's a little bit of opposition involved in those 3 points. See if you can simultaneously work with each of them. Pinning the torso down by outer shoulder leading, the inner elbow, little finger side, the outer wrist, thumb side, pressing down. Now, when we get those points of pressure in balance, it anchors the shoulders. It also gives us the ability to slide the shoulders under a little, away from the neck, which is a good movement, but we don't want to lose space across the back of the shoulders. See if you can tuck the shoulders under, but without narrowing the backs of the shoulders in towards the spine. And once we've achieved that, we can just let go completely, release and relax. The arm adjustments we've just made ideally hasn't pulled the back of the skull in towards the neck. Just keep the chin gently moving back down into the body. Don't rigidly straighten the neck. There's that natural curvature in the neck that we want to remain. And then just make sure that your shoulders are completely relaxed. It's a really nice sensation when you're in this pose for someone to come and just gently with their hands press down onto your shoulders. When they do that, your shoulders feel the floor. It's a nice thing to feel. But at this point in Savasana, we just want the shoulders to relax. For some people, that means that you can feel the floor. For others, the shoulders will feel a little bit naturally lifted off the floor. That's okay. But the reality check for whether or not you've completely relaxed your shoulders is when you breathe in, you want to feel that the shoulders are not blocking the breath in any way. So it's a very subtle action, but feel as you breathe in, it's just a very gentle outward pressure on the shoulders. And the shoulders accommodate the breath and work with the breath. They're not resisting, not staying narrow. And it gives a nice sense of complete release across the shoulder area. It also helps your breath be more natural, relaxed and rhythmic. The elbows, possible to press them down into the floor. We looked at that as we set the pose up, but we're just letting the elbows rest. As they rest, it's as if they improve their ability to gravitate in a downward direction, particularly during the inhalation. As you breathe in, it's almost as if there's an increase in mass in the elbow region. We feel them staying more naturally anchored to the floor. Towards the end of the class, we were working with some of those Vasisthasana hand variations with the hand to the wall, fingers spreading. Many people in those poses run into the fingers. Good to get that and to work into those areas of the wrists, the fingers, the forearms. Just look for any literal connection. You don't make it up, but just feel it, the thumb, and where it connects to the wrist and even into the forearm. And just try to get a uniform release there in the forearm, the wrist, the thumb. It's almost as if we can trace back the sensation that eventually we feel in the fingers through the wrists and through the forearms. Relaxing the forearms, relaxing the wrists helps the fingers to be more soft, more relaxed. And then as we stay in the pose and observe the hands, the fingers have that sense of losing their definition. They have more of an overall vague sense of just fitting into that overall hand-wrist sensation. It's not as divided into the detail of separate fingers, separate knuckles, fingernails. Just allowing the hands to be completely soft and relaxed. Okay, and then let's take a couple of slightly deeper inhalations. And then we'll bend knees, bring feet flat to the floor, and then roll to the side. And inhale, come up as you're ready. Okay, thank you for practicing with Yoga Selection.